The Devil Sword Sparda is a really sick weapon in concept. It's this massive, chunky looking blade with like a fleshy inside, and it uses the Force Edge's hilt, handle, and pummel. And it can also transform into this spear looking thing, and also a scythe or a sickle or whatever you want to call it. But unfortunately, it's probably one of the more underwhelming weapons in Devil May Cry, in my opinion, because there's not really a unique moveset for this. It uses Alistair's moves, and it's basically a reskin. They make like some subtle changes, but it's ultimately still the same. They do change like some of the finishers, and they do change the form of the weapon. Sometimes it's in the spear form, sometimes it's in that scythe form. Like Million Stab uses the spear form, while Round Trip uses the scythe form, and like that's cool and all, but there's not really like any like unique combos to it like you would see with like other devil arms. And you also can't even use Devil Trigger either outside of the boss fight with Mundus. You literally cannot use Devil Trigger, which makes it even more disappointing. And in terms of raw power, it is better than Alistair. Like it's as strong as Alistair when it has DT, like at base, like with no Devil Trigger. So raw power, it is stronger than Alistair when you don't use Devil Trigger. But when you put in all the other factors, like it also not having air hike as well, because in the older games air hike is limited to just weapons and not a general ability. Like in DMC 4 and 5, it's limited to only Alistair if it doesn't have air hike either. And when you also consider the fact that it doesn't have Devil Trigger, then Alistair is still the best devil arm in the whole game. That's still arguable, because like I know Ifrit is also pretty good, but Alistair, in my opinion, is probably the best devil arm, especially because the Devil Trigger also makes you faster, which is really good if you want to get to places quickly. And also that the no Devil Trigger also means you have no vortex or air raid or anything like that. So not only do you have like no air hike, you just have like in general you have less moves than you would have with Alistair, which makes it kind of underwhelming as a weapon, unfortunately. So yeah, just in general, DMC1 Devil Sword Sparda, it's a cool weapon. Once we go to New Game Plus, and like you can actually like use it on the like weaker enemies, like it's cool. It's just not really that practical in like even like a speedrun setting or just efficiency in general. So yeah, moving on to Devil May Cry 2, like just Dante in general just does not have the Devil Sword Sparda. Trish has it instead, and her moveset is basically the same as DMC1 Dante, so there's really nothing that has changed there. You have the air round trip when you're in Devil Trigger, which is kind of cool, and it can also be like used underwater, and I think the scythe form is also used there, which is cool. But there's overall no changes. It still is the same combos. It still like extends and retracts in some of those combos. There's really not a lot of changes here. And so when we move to DMC4 Special Edition, and yes, only Special Edition because it wasn't in the original DMC4, at least in a playable format, it's again in Trish's hands, and her moveset does have largely a lot of moves taken from Dante in this game, but also like a few like unique moves to her, like V Divider, which is basically like a vertical round trip, and there's also Bare Knuckle Combo B, where the Ender has her like do like this upward stab with the spear, and then she changes the shape of it into like a baseball bat and then like whacks them with like a home run. And like yeah, the animation is long and it's not like invincible, so you're not you're very vulnerable here. If an enemy hits you, then you know that's really it. But I think it's a really creative way of using the sword, and I think just in general the Devil Sword Sparda needs a lot more creativity, which it's sorely lacking, because then we go into DMC5 and it's just like Dante has it, and it's just a reskin again. Like this time of Rebellion, it's quite literally just a reskin, and like sure it extends in like different moves like Round Trip, Stinger, Million Step, you know, all the usual moves. It even extends during high time now, but that's really like the only difference here. And so like overall, I think this weapon is just very underwhelming, and like it always is in the shadow of another weapon, whether it be Alistair in DMC1 or Rebellion in DMC5, or just this is supposed to be the blade of Sparda, one of if not the most powerful demons in the entirety of this series, but it just feels so cheap because it's copying the moveset of either another character or another devil arm, which is kind of disappointing. And so that moves me on into the second part of this video, which I wanted to give some ideas for how Sparda could be made better. And like obviously in the canon, this blade isn't here anymore since it's combined with Rebellion in order to make Devil Sword Dante. But in gameplay, you still get to keep it after getting Devil Sword Dante. So let's imagine like that type of scenario, like after keeping it, or just in general, like once you get it, like it has like cool unique moves. So yeah. Okay, so first things first, I would add back the animations from DMC1's combos for like combo A, combo B, combo C, all of them. But here's the kicker: when those combos, like when they end, when you have the finisher, that finisher can lead into a follow-up where the blade can turn into a scythe, and then you can kind of like flick them into the air, like Dante flicks them into the air, which would allow for cool air combos with like, you know, not just Sparda, but also all the other devil arms with weapon switching and all that. And that includes like million stab too. Like, you know, let's say like Dante's like, you know, doing his million stab, you would get like a follow-up at the end when he does the final stab, where he can like launch them into the air. And then the stinger, okay, and then the stinger could be a move where like Dante like extends the Devil Sword Sparda and uses the scythe's the scythe's blade in order to like hook enemies towards him. I actually got this idea from, if anybody knows about Under Night in Birth 2, there's a character named Gordeau, and he uses a scythe, and one of his moves, he basically like reaches out and then like pulls back in, so he's able to drag in opponents and then do like cool combos. That's where I got the idea for this. I just think that's really cool, and I think that would be really nice to see in DMC, like a weapon where its focus is pulling in. It has a lot of range, and like it's able to like pull in opponents in order to get that close range combat. I just think that's really cool. Another move that could be with Devil Sword Dante, or not Devil Sword Dante, I'm thinking of something else. Another move that this blade could have, the Sparda, I think it could have like a Dance Macabre type of combo where like Dante could like stab the Devil Sword Dante into the ground, and then, you know, extend the spear and then kind of like swing around it like he does with Rebellion and DMC3. I just think that's a like, oh, and also there's like a dive kick that you could follow up from there where Dante like jumps off the handle, which is where he'd be swinging from, and then like he could do like bare knuckle combos, kind of like how, you know, when Dante like throws Rebellion for round trip, like he can do his bare knuckle combos in DMC3 or just any games where you have round trip, and you know Dante can like, well, except DMC4, but in DMC1 and 3, like he can do the bare knuckle stuff. I just think it would be really cool. And then obviously you could like call back Sparda, because I don't think anybody would want like to wait for the blade to come to them, so that would give the player some control, basically the same way that it works for round trip, where you just tap like the button to like call it back. And I think this would be like good as like a Swordmaster move, obviously because it's like really stylish, and stylish moves tend to be on the Swordmaster style for the devil arms, and also because it's referencing Dance Macabre. And also I think it would be really cool for like vertical movement. Like imagine how awesome would it be to have a move like this and also be able to use the Trickster Dash and Air Hike. Like that would really allow for like more like vertical level design, which I know people hate that, like that one section with the cubes in DMC3. People hate that. But I think it would be like, if we had something like this, I think it could work out. I think it would be cool. So yeah. But yeah, this should be a Swordmaster move, so that there's like a little bit of execution where you have to switch styles and whatnot, to be able to do like the extending Sparda thing, and then Trickster, then Air Hike combination. And so then aerial Rave could be the same. It really doesn't need any changes. I also think that it would be cool to have Dante use that like scythe form to extend and pull enemies towards him, but also while in the air, obviously, again for air combos. And so if you haven't already gotten the memento already, I'm splitting the I'm splitting the scythe and spear forms, where the scythe form is basically like your triangle attacks, your normal combos, while the spear form is swordmaster, so circle or B or like Y and B, and like whatever your control scheme looks like. I just think that would be good. I took this idea from Cerberus and how the flame moves are all put onto the swordmaster style, while like the ice and electrical moves are put onto like just like regular attacks. I think that would be pretty cool. And then to demonstrate that, to make it like clear, I think the Sparda blade could be like in its base form when it's on Dante's back when you're off of Swordmaster, but when you're on it, it like transforms into the spear on Dante's back. And then like this transformation like should be noticeable at all angles and not just when the camera is positioned behind Dante. And then also the idle animations when this weapon is out could also indicate a change, like in Swordmaster when it transforms into a spear, he could be in like this defensive stance when like holding a spear or whatever, like rocking back and forth, kind of like Cerberus or Balrog's idle animation. But then when he isn't in Swordmaster, Dante could rest it on his shoulder, kind of like that one artwork that you see, not really artwork, well yeah, one kind of like that one pose you see when you're selecting Dante, and I think like it's the EX pose, like when he's like resting the sword on his shoulder, but just as an idle animation. So yeah, overall, in my opinion personally, I think the Devil Sword Dante is one of the more disappointing devil arms in this series. It's supposed to be like this incredibly strong weapon used by an equally powerful demon, Sparda, but it just doesn't translate to gameplay because it's either weaker than the weapons before it, or it's always living in the shadows of another devil arm. And the cutscene showcase in DMC1 and the gameplay across the games all show that this blade can take like multiple different shapes, not just a scythe or a spear, and it's just not utilized. Like, it really sucks. So yeah, hopefully my ideas give a glimpse into what the Sparda could have been. I find it kind of unlikely that we'll see this weapon again in future titles, since it became the Devil Sword Dante with Rebellion. But I don't think that should stop any ideas for how the weapon could be handled better but throughout the series. So yeah, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed my rambling. Peace out. Bye bye.